On today's episode, we are so excited to welcome back to the podcast Brody Mueller and Carly Polka of the Market on the Plaza in Aberdeen, South Dakota. So we sat down with them about a month after they'd been in business to just be honest, to talk honestly about the challenges that they'd faced, how hard it's actually been for them. And this is such a beautiful episode. And I said that throughout the interview with them a couple of times because they are being so intentional about creating culture. We talked a lot about the dynamics on their team, the dynamics between the two of them, and the tools and the ideas and the things that they've put in place. And because my professional career has been related to corporate culture, people development, I am so stinking proud of these two and the work that they're doing to be so thoughtful and so careful and so mindful. Because if you get the people right, a lot of the other stuff can get figured out. And so enjoy learning and getting all the wisdom from these two people that are in it. They're right in the middle of it, and they really share the ups and the downs. I will give you one word of caution. There's a couple of F-bombs that get dropped in this episode, so just be aware of that if you've got little ears in the vehicle or wherever you might be listening to this. Enjoy this wonderful chat. They are my good friends. I'm so proud to know them. Brody and Carly of the Market on the Plaza.
Yeah, we're live, or we're recording.
We're doing it.
It's on. The red button's on.
You have to leave all that in there. Well, don't edit that out because it's hilarious. Yeah. It's almost like, do we start?
Do I talk? Do you talk?
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Well, it's been a hot minute, Real Revolution. We've kind of been busy, and I will thank Rebecca for coming back in and forcing us back into the studio here, forcing us to take a morning and take some time. So, and welcome back to the Pheasant Canteen.
Hey, thanks, guys. So yeah, I reached out because I was like, I watch you on social media. And I text you occasionally, like, hey guys, or like little group text. And I thought it might be super interesting for all of your listeners to see what happens behind social media. Mm-hmm. Because we talked about this the last time I was here, that we as business owners, we rarely share like the real challenges. And because there's that balance, right? Like, you don't want your customers to be like, they don't have their shit together. Right. Like you have patrons that need to trust that you're going to be there and that you're doing it. But at the end of the day, what makes us people is talking about some of the challenges too. So everything looks so perfect on social media, but I know life ain't perfect all the time. So you've been at this for an entire month, the Market on the Plaza specifically.
Yes.
How has it been?
It's been singularly the greatest thing and the hardest thing I think that I've ever done. If I can speak for myself, I think it's very much that duck mentality. You got to be smooth on the top, but you're paddling to beat hell on the bottom. Mm-hmm. And that is definitely what it felt like. There was, when I got to like week 3, I think we all kind of stopped and was like, we've now seen the best and worst of each other. But we're all still here.
Absolutely.
And so it's figuring out the planning phase is very, very different than the doing phase. Mm-hmm. And rolling with, there were so many punches that came even within the first week that we had to figure out.
Wasn't it like the first weekend that you had your first big hit?
4 days, 3 days in, 4 days in.
That's what I thought. It was like right away, right?
Yeah. Our kitchen manager came down with COVID. And so we said, okay, go home and let's figure it out.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
I said, so I jumped behind the line, and I've never worked in a restaurant in that capacity, especially on day 3 of a restaurant. And so just cranked it out. And then Carly was back there the next day, and then our events manager, she grew up working at Marlin's, which is like a truck stop diner. So we knew nothing could scare her. And so she ran it one day and did a great job. And by the end of it, we had figured it out, but it was a struggle. It feels chaotic. I'm like rambling now, but I'm just going to go with
Go with that.
Okay. So when you're back there, you have no choice but to just keep looking down. But then every time you look up, you see the line, and then you see the stack of tickets, and you just have no choice. There's no way to go but through. And there are people like our kitchen manager who's been trained in that. He has a very particular set of skills, and it makes him very efficient. And we're all learning the menu. It was always the goal that we would all cross-train and all be able to do all the things. We didn't expect to do it on day 3.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there. I've got two thoughts in my head.
Okay.
One I'll share for later. It'll come back to me. But when you were talking, I was like, well, great. You were cross-trained. Here's the truth. If he hadn't gotten sick, you still wouldn't be cross-trained on that line. Do you know how I know that?
Absolutely.
You know, I know that
we know
because
that.
life happens. And when the shit goes well, we don't do anything.
Yep.
So I think, that totally sums up to me. So I'm going to say, can I say the F word?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Okay. My mom doesn't like it. Sorry,
No,
Mom, if
no.
she listens to
I
this.
get it.
But I swear I'm going to write a keynote for anybody that's trying to do hard things that's called The Fuck Up is the Way Up. Because we think that, like, oh, it'll be great. And you don't learn stuff when stuff goes well,
Mhm.
right? Like you don't get forced to do anything differently.
Mhm.
So I actually think what an amazing outcome from so challenging. And
It was an amazing opportunity. I think we can look back and say that now. I think it was I found the reactions to it internally to be very interesting. So Rachel, the events manager, she will always jump in. She will always help with whatever is needed. She's a full on like type 2 or type 9. Like she's a helper.
Enneagram there, Brody.
Yeah,
okay. We're going to talk about that.
And so she wants to help and she wants everything to go smoothly. So she'll just jump in, damn the consequence or like whatever else she has to be doing that. Carly ran the line one day and
Would you like me to explain that?
Well,
yeah, I would love to hear what it was like.
What it was, we got done and I was like, so I got done with my first day and was like, oh, well, we did it.
I ran the line.
That kind of sucked, but we did it and we got through it. So, okay, what's next? And so at the end of Carly's day, we're downstairs and she's like, that did not feel like success to me. Even though it all worked and everybody got out and there weren't any, like, no one threw food in our face.
No one threw up from eating your food.
Like everybody was happy.
Everybody was happy, but for her,
But for me,
it didn't feel like success to me.
Oh.
So go.
Can we dive into that?
oh, see, it just makes my heart
need your
go
shrink
back.
wrap ladies here for this, maybe, but I'm here.
Right.
Sorry, this is who you've got. It's just me.
So I was not there when he told us that he had COVID and so he had to go. And so I came back in the kitchen and our entire team was like, don't tell Carly, just wait till she's here. Cause
I told everybody not to tell Carly.
Because like in a text, like when she's not physically on site, right?
Okay, so
it's fair.
Gosh, my heart just starts beating when I talk about this.
So it's real anxiety.
It is. So behind the scenes of everything too, I'm also, why I wasn't there is I was trying to answer questions at my other business. So I was at Colorful Creations answering questions that my manager had for me. And it was like, 5 texts of the same thing. And so I'm over there and I come back and I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. On day 3, how in the hell am I going to do this? It is planting season. I have my manager who has never been like fully on her own
Colorful Creations.
At Colorful Creations, right. Never been fully on her own without me being a phone call or a text away. Now I can't even answer the phone or a text because I have my hands in food and I can't even answer it. So I just remember instant like rage of, you've got to be kidding me. How are we going to do this? So I went back in that line on that first day and it just instantly, right? Like I just instantly start doing it. And so I don't know the menu. I have a really hard time with remembering things. And so I remember having the menu in one hand and having my thumb underneath which sandwich I'm making and having to go like piece by piece to remember what I'm making because it was so fast that like my short-term memory was gone. And so I am
getting so stressed out listening to you talk about this.
And so like having to remember those things. And then as my thumb is here, I look at the ticket and it says no tomato, but I just added the tomato.
Because you're following your
Because
thumb.
I'm following my thumb and I'm not looking at that ticket that says that. And so then at the end of the day, I have 8 sandwiches that were made wrong. And all I see are those 8 sandwiches that made wrong. I don't see the 100 tickets that we did right because those are gone. But in my visual sight, that's all I see all day. And so as I'm like getting in this line, and Rachel jumped in, and we are now called the yin and yang, by the way, because we figured out a system of how to, she's making the paninis and then I'll jump behind her and I'll do the wraps and the cold sandwiches. But it made the line more efficient.
Yeah.
And it made it go smoother. Man, my anxiety is like,
it's so stressful. You guys, and
but
honestly, watching, knowing, okay, so I knew that had happened. That wasn't a public thing.
Right.
I'm a behind the scenes person. So I knew that that had happened. And I'm telling you, you both just jumped up in your seats at I wish everyone could have seen that. That was amazing. You both had exactly the same physical response at the same time. And it was almost like breathing. Like,
yes. Okay. I just need to stop and take a deep breath.
Yeah, go ahead.
It was one of those experiences where like I'm on the line and my assistant over at the studio. This is also when I'm trying to execute these roses to get them done in time. So it was a huge deal. And it's also coming up to the close of my dad's 1-year anniversary and these roses that I've been talking about for 4 months getting done. And I remember I'm at the line making the sandwich and she shows up in front of me and she goes, "Hey, I'm sorry. I know you're working and I know you can't answer my 10 texts that I sent you, but I need you to answer this. This one or this one, this poll or this poll." And I go, "That one." She goes, "Okay, thank you. Goodbye." And I'm like, shit, is it that bad that she has to come physically to me, look me in the eye so that I can respond to her so that she can do her job effectively?
Can I tell you? Yes. It was that bad.
I know.
That moment, right? And okay, so there's one thing I want to say, because this is why I think this is so important. Okay. I think this is important for everybody that listens to both of our shows, by the way, because we want to show people what's possible.
Mm-hmm.
What you guys have pulled off looks fucking impossible. I'm telling you that as a person that actually knows what I know, a lot of what has to go into this. And we want to make sure that we want your patrons to be like, "Oh, easy breezy, lovely, great location." You want them to feel it all being really easy. You don't want your customers to feel your stress. And, obviously that's obvious.
Right.
But everybody else that's out there trying to do their thing, if they already have a farming husband. So I'm just picking on Carly here, right? It's like, she's like, it's planting season. She has another business. You've got little kids. Brody, you've got little kids. You've got a busy
wife's
family,
on call.
Right? All of this stuff. And so if we don't ever talk about how hard it is to just actually sometimes moment to moment get through it, then it looks like you have to be a unicorn to make these things happen. And that's just not true.
It's not true. But for me, when I was in that moment, I was not going to show that customer that I was struggling.
Of course.
Right? Because it's not about me.
You're also very on display because your line is on display.
It's on display.
You're not behind a wall.
And we know that. So
we've talked about that a lot.
You can freak the hell out if you have a wall to freak out behind. Can't. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of, for us, that customer experience. Yes, I'm going to smile at you. I don't want to smile because I really want to scream because this is so hard. And then, so I get done at the end of the day and I'm like, that was so hard. But like Brody said, it didn't feel successful.
Yeah. See, that makes me sad to hear.
It made me sad too. Like we just did a huge thing and it was really hard.
And so let me go into that more though, because
please.
So I found, and Brody had to stop me. It was like, I think last week that we just had this conversation of reflecting now, I sometimes get so into it that I want the wheels to turn so perfectly. And I want the gears to turn so perfectly. And so in those moments, I'm not thinking of that was successful. That was not, I need to work on that. I need to fix that. I need to tweak that so that the wheels turn better. So in my mind, that was not successful because the gears weren't linked.
Do you know correctly. So we're going to talk Enneagram, but do you know what your Myers-Briggs is?
No, I don't know what that is. I know Enneagrams now because of Brody.
Are you a detailed person?
I'm an artist. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I feel like you lost the forest for the trees because at the end of the day, the wheel turned.
It did turn. Right.
And the wheel just needed to turn,
Yep.
And I obviously, so I'm a person but I also am super critical. Like I'm super critical of myself.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know that I am my best and my worst critic.
Yeah.
I know that about myself. Right. Like I have done classes where I can do a painting and I'm going to pick apart that one little mark that I made, right? Until I fix it. I'm going to do that. And so for like the first 3 weeks, I was so in it as far as like getting the wheels to turn and getting these to turn that Brody had to call me one night and be like, "I need to talk to you as your friend." I'm like, "Ooh, okay." Kind of put your guard up a little bit of like, what the hell is he going to tell me?
Right.
He goes, "I need you to smile more."
And not in a sexist way. I made to be very clear. This
Correct.
isn't you should smile more.
No.
You should show your cleavage. That's not what he said. He said you should smile. I mean, but this is so good, you guys.
Okay.
Tell me why you said that.
So we were talking about, because it's an open kitchen, and we had at the time, 2 weeks ago, we'd been having trouble with this. Like we'd kind of been hearing stuff from some of the staff, and like they were on edge and they thought we were on edge. And there were times where we had,
you were
days.
Actually on edge.
Yes.
Yeah. Some days.
And so
they were picking up our energy.
They were picking up our energy. And so, and I feel it too, because now I can understand where she's at, but her and I have gone through this thing for a while. So I know that she's just in it and trying to just work all that. She's Queen's Gambiting it. You know what I mean? Like
totally
she's just working it out in her head, but you got to tell that to her face. So
you have to literally stop me.
Yep.
And look me in the eye.
Her face looks like she's angry. So then the staff
it's RBF, but it's thinking bitch face.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I get
like,
it.
I'm good. Right.
Right.
But I'm just not there.
And so I said, your smile is so disarming.
Oh man.
That's what it is. And so, and I'm able to roll with that because I know you now and we're able to do this, but your smile is so disarming for the staff. It will be a huge thing. And then just credit to her. She straight up asked one of our staff, she goes, do you find it hard to talk to me? And God bless that staff. She goes, yeah, sometimes.
She goes, you remind me of my mother.
Yeah. Which could be a beautiful thing. But it could be really,
but it's
really
a very
hard.
intimidating thing because we found in our staffing that some of them would contact him right away and they would ignore me. And so we were very interested to figure out, well, why were they texting me or why were they texting him? And why were they all ignoring me? What was I doing that I was not creating that space, that environment, that boss, that leader that they need? What am I doing wrong? And so then I started getting in my head again. Right. And then I start thinking about the wheels and how am I portraying? And then he called me. I'm like, that's it.
You guys, this is so beautiful. Like, I just love it so much. I spent the last 2 days talking about teaming with the two companies I was consulting with. And I'm telling you what we're talking about. This is the hardest work. It is the hardest part.
Yes.
Because sometimes people want to make it easy. Like, if you're just rad, you'll hire rad people and then everybody will be great and they'll never be this. But this is so real life. Okay. So let's talk about the Enneagram because you've used it, right? So, super specifically, you've used it in your team.
At first, it was just our core team that did it. And I found that experience to be so enlightening because a lot of us are the same, but a lot are very different. Now, I feel like a superpower because I can read everybody like a book.
And so to be clear, our core team is of 5 people.
Yeah, okay, which is who, just for people, not necessarily names either. Yeah. You can certainly say their names. Give them a shout out. They've been working hard for you.
They have been working hard. It's our operations manager, Nikki Hines. So she handles all the back end, like the Shopify stuff, the inventory, the retail. She's like a bloodhound.
What up, Nikki?
Great thing. Like she found pretzels from Mitchell. Like who the hell knew they were making awesome pretzels in Mitchell?
Somebody should, and now Nikki does. Yeah, and now everybody that shops at your store.
But she has like a superpower to find these people that don't have a brick and mortar, don't have enough stuff. Yeah. And she puts them in our space and they're like, oh, they're 30 miles. Like chocolate, for example, is a mile away from my house.
She had no idea.
In my town. I didn't even know they existed, but she found them.
And now we sell a shit ton of chocolate.
Right. But it's amazing chocolate. And so she finds the people, she puts them all in a system. She tags everything. She also does all of our social media. Yep. That is Nikki Hines.
Rachel Cramond is our events manager. Mm-hmm. We stole her from the big event center in town we said, quit the Navy and come be a pirate with us. And I love that
analogy. Yeah, that's fun.
I had to work on her for a long, long time, but she hasn't looked back. And so she is super detail oriented. Now she knows how to run events. She's done it for years. Now she gets to run fun events and then also make her own events. Yeah. Also, Rachel and Nikki are sister-in-laws. So Rachel's brother is married to Nikki. They're also next door neighbors. And so they enjoy living.
They have a lot of good juju then.
Yes. Living life together. Perfect. And then Cully Nelson has worked in restaurants all over town. Most of them has closed. And so he just moves on to the next one. He's never had the power to do his own menu and run his own kitchen. And so he wowed us in the interview. And then we said, maybe start thinking about a menu. The next time we talked, he goes, I got some ideas if you want them. He whipped out his notebook and that's our menu.
Like currently 3 pages that he's just like, I think I have some ideas. I'm like,
dude. Yeah. Yeah. So even just listening to that, I think there's things for listeners to pick up on. Like if you have to hire people, there's something really cool about the way that you're able to let everybody shine.
Yes.
Like everybody brings their own gifts, right? And I had to answer this interview question, like on an email. I'm doing this thing. And it said, like, what is your purpose? Like your personal purpose or personal mission? Like I've got businesses, but like, what are you here to do? And I actually said that I think I want my job to be that I help people steward their gifts well. Like I don't want you to feel like you have to show up in a way that doesn't feel good to Brody or Carly, right? Like I think when we do that, then that's how we change things. That's how we make an impact. And you're letting these people, meaning allowing for their genius to come forward. And then you guys benefit from that. What a cool, solid, like core team.
Yeah. So we did this Enneagram with everybody, and it was great because people were able to connect in ways that they hadn't before. And I can now see the matrix. And so I can see kind of how people work. And we got done and I said, that was so cool. And Carly goes, can we get back to work now?
Yeah, there it is.
Because her type 3, which is the achiever, we weren't achieving anything. There were no tangible outcomes from that. But there were all kinds of intangible outcomes that have now played themselves out to be super fucking important.
Right.
It's that interpersonal, how we all work together thing. I've never worked in a team before. So by the time we got this team hired, I'm confident I will fuck it up if I don't pay attention. And so that team and knowing what the hiring situation is, we have not hired one dud. We have all great staff.
That's
and so
a huge feather in your cap for what we're dealing with right now. I mean, seriously.
Well, and I think it speaks to the mission, right? And again, we've had 3 or 4 people now who emailed out of the blue, and we've hired them like on the spot because yes, it's great. So then we took the Enneagram, and I'm able to kind of read Carly now, but then it's very good to turn on yourself then.
Right.
So for instance, I am a full-on type 7, which is the enthusiast, and the tagline is everybody loves a type 7 because I'm the idea guy. I'm the hype guy. Like I'm the party. What I found in working with these ladies is that they didn't find that as fun as I did. And so Carly in her strength was able to be like, we need you to just like even take notes would be great. And so I said, oh, okay, I can do that. I took notes at our next meeting and Nikki started crying. She was so happy that
Brody was taking notes, because what we were finding and what I was feeling is that he was hearing us, but he wasn't listening to us. And so by him not writing things down, it didn't feel like he was present.
Yeah.
And then we just didn't feel like, Brody, are you here? And though he was physically here, was he mentally here helping us?
That's so interesting. And it takes such courage. Like, let me just say, it takes courage, and it's brave, right? I mean, for anybody, like for Nikki or for either of you to like, you're not calling each other out. You're asking for what you need.
Yes.
And it's so hard to do.
And to be clear, Brody was doing all of those things on the back end. He was just doing them a different way.
Yeah.
But, for me, right? I saw those 8 sandwiches I did wrong. I didn't see him writing things down to remind himself that those things need to be done, because there was a certain part where I had to stop myself and I was just, this anxiety was building. I'm like, why am I getting so mad at him? Like he walked down the hallway and I'm like, what is he doing? And he didn't know. And so then I'm like, well, where's your list? Where did we talk about this? And so then it was literally coming back to myself and be like, why am I getting so mad at him for something that I haven't told him? My communication was not clear of what am I like, because we had never talked about like, what are our roles in this business? We had never talked about our expectations for each other.
Partners, listen up.
Right.
Like
we hadn't.
Seriously.
We had never discussed of like, what are the things that Brody's doing to run this business? What are the things that Carly's doing to run this business? What are our roles in this? And everything was falling on my plate. And I felt like the world was just like falling on me. And like, I literally, even with my spouse, I was going home and I wasn't talking at all because that's all I was doing all day. And I was in my head, right? I was processing. I was trying to get the wheels together. So all night I'm thinking. And 3 weeks later, my husband goes, hey, can you talk to me? Because I hadn't told him anything. Because when I get home, I have to process everything. I have to figure everything out in my head. And I wasn't talking to anybody. And so it was that moment that I had to stop myself and be like, I'm not communicating with anybody but my head.
Okay, so there's a couple things. Like when I said that your assessment of your own day made me sad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brody's like, made me sad too. And you're like, hey, but it's legitimate. And it is, by the way.
Right.
Here's the thing. It's only problematic if you don't do something about it or speak it out loud. And honestly, if your husband hadn't said that, you maybe would have had a full on breakdown.
Oh,
I mean, seriously, you're just like heading in that direction. But so this is the thing, right? It's about self-awareness.
Absolutely.
And saying, and even if all you can articulate is looking at Brody and being like, okay, I'm feeling super pissed at you. And I don't even really know why.
Yeah.
But here's what I feel like I'm experiencing. Let's talk it out. I mean, that's a great place to start. I think sometimes we think like we have to be able to fully articulate. Yeah. And if you trust each other enough, you don't. You just have to be able to say like, look, I'm really struggling and I'm feeling this towards you.
Yeah.
We need to do something. Let's just hash it out. But you were able to give him something super clear and directed too, which is awesome. And he was like, oh, I need to just take notes.
And he did it. And that was
like,
the
all
thing.
Right, I'll help you out and take notes.
He did it. Absolutely. And that's
Nikki
why
cried.
Nikki cried right away.
Yeah.
And that's the part where he is like the most amazing business partner because he takes the feedback and then he does it.
Right.
Right.
And this is what, like, all of us have to make adjustments that are outside of our natural zones. And we do those things because we love and care about the other person.
Absolutely.
And we care about the goal, right? If you want to be a prick and not take notes, they ask you to take notes and you go, I don't fucking take notes. It's not what I do. Then you're a prick and you're not a good business partner. I mean, that's...
Well, and after that exchange,
end of it, right?
I called Nikki and I said, if there are other things I can do to make things easier for you, like, please just I've been on my own for so long.
Yeah, you're a renegade. Yeah, I mean, you don't know different.
My kid's dance instructor and piano teacher walked in and said, hey, our dance recital, the last dance recital gets over 9:30. I know you guys close at 10. But I'd bring in 20 people and we could get, maybe we could get some food. And Carly and I are both standing there and go, yeah, you bet. Let's make it work.
Because we both worked on our own for so long. So we're the only ones making decisions where we don't have a team. We make the decision like, yes, that's going to happen. But so that I'm fully expecting to be the one to do that because I made the promise and that's what I've done. If I make the promise, there is nobody else to do it. So meanwhile, Rachel's standing behind me saying, what the fuck are you guys doing? We close at 10.
We close at 10 and the kitchen closes at 4, by the way. So I don't know who you think is going to do this. And I said, I'll figure it out. So she sat us both down, like, let this come to Jesus. Like a week later, she goes, you guys need to lock it up. We need to either things work that way or they don't. And then I realized like, okay, I'm coming from a place where I just expected to do it myself because this woman is in my life. She's important to me and my kids. And of course I would do this for them. They've just had I come from theater. It's hell week, like you just go through the thing. And she's coming from a place where people would do this and then heap it onto her plate and say, deal with this. I've made them promise.
Right.
I never expected her to do that, but we just hadn't communicated that either.
So it all comes back to communication.
Yeah. Well, it all comes back in communication coming from a place of you have to create a psychologically safe place for that communication to ever even take place.
That's where the Enneagram came in. And it's become, because it's about your core desires and about your core fears, right? So as a 7, I am constantly coming up with new stuff and on to the next thing because I don't want to deal with the uncomfortable feelings. I can now.
What makes you uncomfortable?
I can feel myself do that. I'm finding out, I didn't think I was, but I think I'm fairly conflict averse. And so when I have to deal with that type of stuff, I find myself like, then I get squirrel mode and try to go do something else that's fun.
What about approval? Is that a big part of what drives a 7?
It is for me because words of affirmation is also my love language.
Okay,
so if you tie that all
but
together,
you're also a 2.
I'm also.
You have a wing.
Well, yeah. So I'm a 7, which is the ideas all the time. I'm also an 8, which is the leader. Right. I'm more 7 than any of the rest of these, but then I'm also a 2, which is a helper. I will always jump in and help. So I'm realizing that like I'm having a hard time we're in business, like we're in business to make money. Right. And I still find myself wanting to be like, don't worry about it or I'll take care of it or whatever. And I need to stop myself from doing that. 2 is also get taken advantage of because I just jump in. And
so part of Brody too is I catch myself not giving him a thank you. Not slowing down enough to say, thank you for writing that down. Thank you for taking care of that lunch shift so I could go answer questions at the studio. Because he's a 2 and because he's a 7, I have to remind myself of who he is that I can't keep shutting down his ideas, because when he keeps throwing things at us of like different ideas, in my mind, like I haven't even got these gears to turn right. And so you're throwing something else at me, which makes my anxiety go higher. And so now we've learned that about each other of you can only throw so many things at me and I need to get them to turn correctly, which is why this partnership is so good.
Right.
Because he has amazing ideas and then I'll fine tune them until they're like perfect.
Yeah.
But he has to not tone it down, but needs to write them down.
I had to adjust my presentation.
Right.
Is all.
Right.
And so I would come to these meetings like, what about this? And let's do this now. And let's do this. And they started saying, we're just going to put that in the box for now.
Yeah.
And then I kind
do you have a parking lot? Just create a giant parking lot.
Yeah.
Where you go, let's put it in the parking lot.
It started to feel like, well, no, fuck you. Like nothing's ever going to come out of the box. Now you're just parking me there and you're limiting me, which is also one of my fears. They weren't doing that necessarily, but then I started to feel like, well, I'm just not in this anymore. Like you don't want to hear what I have to say.
You don't need me.
You don't need me. And so,
but this is so valuable, you guys.
And a lot of this has really come in like last week or two.
Right.
Yeah.
And then just to, I guess, jump a little farther forward. So then we had the whole staff do it. And
the Enneagram.
Right.
And we realized there were a ton of loyalists in there, type 6s, and they and type 2 helpers, and they do a great job. But those two specifically are great to do anything you need them to do as long as they know where to do it, how to do it, and who to report to. A week before that, we had heard some rumblings around people are asking our kitchen manager, like, who's my boss? And me as a type 7, I'm like, who the fuck cares? Like, let's just like, I don't know. We're all in this together. Let's just do it. Well,
right.
That's not.
And in my mind, I'm like, well, absolutely. They need a plan. They need a goal. They need somebody to answer to. And Brody's like, well, I don't like all that stuff. That doesn't matter. They'll just get it done.
It's not that I don't like it. It's just like, it all just needs to get done.
You don't need it.
I don't need it.
No. Yeah. Right. You're good.
I don't like calling our senior management team the senior management team. Like it's the 5 of us and we are the bosses, I guess. But that is just corporate. And hang on one second. Sorry, I'm finishing.
You're so good. Go.
So then I did this all, and you look at it and you're like, holy shit, they need to know who's the boss. So then I created a sheet called "Who You Gonna Call" and said, "Do you have questions about
Ghostbusters?
Do you have questions about retail? Then you call Carly or Nikki. Do you have questions about coffee? Then you call Brody. Do you have questions about food? Then you call Cully." And just kind of went through the list. And then from that, even after that meeting, we had people come up and say, you know what else I'm missing is I need to be told that I'm doing a good job.
Oh, yes.
We created that psychological space
that
they were able to say that. We had another girl say, you hired me for a bartender. It kind of seems like you need somebody on the main floor. And I kind of feel like I'm flourishing with food and coffee and like these, spritzy drinks that we have now. Like, what if we did that? And we said, have you been reading our diary? We were going to ask you about that. And then suddenly the whole place is fully staffed now.
This is so rad. I love it because I'm like, I'm like thinking about it's a great day for a beer on the plaza. And that's like your social media post. And all of this is what's actually driving all of that. And I think it's fascinating. So here's a question for you guys. So it sounds like the majority of your team needed this structure, right? So why do you guys think that they were seeking you out for support instead of you? Okay, by the way, people don't know who the hell I'm pointing to because this isn't the physical thing. So I find that really interesting because Carly, clearly you're the person that has more of the detail-oriented mindset. Mm-hmm. And yet at the beginning of this conversation, we talked about they were reaching out to Brody. Mm-hmm. So why?
Because female type 8s have a tough lot in life. They're the bitch.
Yes. And I remember I called them specifically. I'm like, I feel like they all feel like I'm the bitch in the situation.
Are you an 8 or a 3? I thought you were a 3.
I'm both.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am the 8.
8 is, go ahead.
So the 8 is the leader.
Oh, right.
So okay. I have another friend and we were just talking about this and so Carly is an 8, a 7 and a 3. So she has the idea.
She does, definitely.
When the leadership or when everything is working well, then she feels in a safe space to be able to. And she has capacity in her brain. To start creating. And that's where her art comes from and stuff as well. But I don't really care if something falls apart. She's got to finish it. She's an
I'm
achiever.
the achiever. That's my 3.
You definitely need her though.
Oh,
Don't
absolutely.
you think? I mean, as far as that goes,
I would be a disaster if I was doing this on my
You really know your Enneagram. I don't. That's why I find this really fascinating.
But that's
the
Brody.
one assessment tool I don't know as well.
And that's the nice thing about Brody though, is that he's dug so into this that I'm learning so much. Like I haven't opened a book, but I'll just call Brody and I'm like, Brody, why am I feeling this way? Explain this to me. And he's very good. And that's why Brody is so smart, because he, again, with all of his weird facts that he just remembers off the top of his head, he reads it one time and he knows it and he gets it.
Like Cliff Clavin from Cheers. Or just random trivia.
So he's
That's
also
a major
I killed off all the weak buffaloes.
But he has an amazing thing about connection and about people. He's very good with people because he's very interested and he's very curious about it, about our team. And he said before that he's never been on a team. And so he's flourishing in this because he'll see this happening and then he'll know how to approach it based on how they best respond to feedback or their fears. So he's very well in tune with like, okay, don't bring this up because we don't want to approach the fear, but how do I best make them succeed?
Yeah.
We had one girl who is she needs to be step by step. My brother's the same way, needs to know all the facts so that she can execute. She was having trouble with coffee, with just like the process of coffee. We kind of have to show her time and time again. And I don't mind doing that. It's not a super intuitive thing. But then I was like, oh, okay, you're a 5. I'm going to send you 3 YouTube videos. And it goes into deep, like the espresso theory, milk frothing theory, and just give those. I don't know if it matters, but that's the approach I'm taking with her, as opposed to other people who may not need that. And they need something else. They just need a checklist about what to do. And so
but she needed a visual.
She needed the step-by-step stuff. And we can write it down, I guess. I thought that would be helpful.
Yeah. What was her feedback?
She's young and quiet. And so
you're not sure yet.
That was yesterday. So
Okay. Well, she's just like, she soaked them all up. You don't know yet, but you'll find out.
Yep.
Okay. So when you were talking about keeping your head down early on, we were talking about how you're in it. I just want to share this analogy for you. So we took our kids to Arizona in February and we were climbing Cathedral Rock. It said on the website that it was kid friendly. So it was like, yeah, we're going to do this. So again, at the time, our kids were 11, 9, and 6. There were times on going up this hill, this mountain, this rock, that you needed both your hands and your feet to scale to the next thing. If you can picture that. Okay. Yeah. So what you described is exactly how I was. Kids just naturally do this. They don't look up from the task in front of them. So as long as I would think, where do I need to put my hand next? To like, what should I grab or what should I do to get to the next thing? The second I would look out or look down, I almost had a panic attack several times. But kids just very much are like, they were just like zipping up this thing. And it was a very, very cool experience. And there's tons of parallels. I will just say, like, if you ever want to know the good of humanity, climb something. Because all the people up there, like everybody cheered my kids on and stuff. It was really rad. But it was exactly that. Like, sometimes you can only focus on what's right in front of you. And if you look up, the overwhelm will just kill you. So I think it's I can totally picture that. And the other thing I wanted to share as you guys are talking is, this is why I think the goal for every human is just doing the best that you can, because your best changes from day to day. And the reason it changes from day to day is, like if you're tired and you slept like crap the night before, your best doesn't look the same as it does when you're fully rested. Carly, everything that you experienced that day, you were doing the best that you could, but you were under tremendous stress. You had a tremendous number of additional priorities. And so how you handled that day would look different if it wasn't planting season and you didn't have stuff going on. You didn't have a rose installation that you were working on consecutively, right? So sometimes that's how we give ourselves grace, is just to look at ourselves at the end of the day and said, okay, did I actually do the best that I could today, given everything that's going on?
And so I've had to find myself and actually schedule it out. So I have a 30-minute commute here and back. And I've had to find myself, I literally have to shut my phone off when I'm driving and just be present with my kids and actually take the time to appreciate the day. Because at the end of the day, we built this. And I have not been good about this, about actually stepping back and looking at it and being like, we actually built this. And no, it's not perfect right now. And it's probably never.
How would it be?
Right. And it's never going to be. Right.
Right.
And in my mind, I have to stop and I have to appreciate the people and the physical customers that come in and be able to just stop. And I have to stop myself and physically like set a reminder on my watch to tell myself to stop.
You need to do that as a team too.
Yes.
You need to just sit down and look at your team and set little milestones. Like I would highly encourage you to do that. And it could be a milestone of something really silly, like maybe you make your 1,000th sandwich or something. And to look at each other and be like, we just made our 1,000th sandwich, and do like a team huddle and a high five or whatever. Because it is while you're trying to perfect your processes, everybody's still working their asses off. All of you know. We don't celebrate enough. I don't think.
We don't. It was like the first week it's like that line from Jurassic Park. Like we have all the major problems of a zoo and amusement park all wrapped into one. We have like 5 goddamn businesses under this one roof.
Do.
We're a coffee shop. We're a bistro. We're a retail space. We're a bar. We're an event space. Plus the outdoor plaza.
Right.
And so
it is no joke.
It is
not an enormous space.
No.
But it's an enormous undertaking.
Yeah. It's about 1,000 square feet on each level.
Yeah.
But you bring up the milestones. So I looked at my analytics, and it just because it's kind of fun to see what's selling and whatever. And I noticed that there was one crew neck sweatshirt that we had sold a shit ton of. We happened to open like Mother's Day weekend, which was the greatest thing we could have ever not know that we did. We sold a lot of retail.
Happy accidents.
There was one crew neck that was our highest grossing item, but the Redland Panini was right behind it. And I said, Cully, you got about $300. If you can sell $300 in panini sandwiches, then you will be the top selling thing. And it was like 2 days later, he goes, where am I at? And I looked it up, and I said, you did it. You have now sold enough money, like sold enough sandwiches to have the highest grossing item in this entire building.
Yes, that's super cool though. And I think you could build in fun, surprise, and delight rewards and incentives for your team. There's like fun little things like that. Because not everybody's competitive, but the ones that are, like clearly Cully is like,
and
like, so I want the best sandwich.
And so like when we started doing that, I started looking at things. That's when we decided that we really needed to have our team night. And so that's when Brody, introduced everybody to that. But we needed to have a team night to slow down, stop, and remind everybody the story of how this place started, our vision and our mission.
Good for you.
Because part of this whole thing is nothing works unless you have the right people. People don't leave jobs. People leave people.
Yeah, 100%.
And so a lot of the people that we sniped from other places have had re-offers to go back and work at the places that they're at, and they're turning them down to stay with us, which is incredibly humbling.
And I really, really want your listeners, all of our listeners, to hear that, because I think sometimes we're like, but we're a startup and we don't know what we're doing and it's chaotic. Sure. But again, psychological safety doesn't just come from the clear job or like knowing exactly what's going to happen. It's about feeling safe to ask questions, and it's feeling safe to be who you actually are.
Yep.
And if you're struggling, to be able to say, hey, I think I need help. Right. And you guys are you're making such an effort to do that. And it may still feel like a month in, you're not where you want to be yet, but I'm telling you, you guys are it pays off in a million ways. I mean, and you're going to one day be like, oh my gosh, the wheels are all turning perfectly, and it's going to feel really good. And then some shit's going to happen and you'll be like, damn, the wheels fall off.
That's the thing though, is, as an artist and as like I picked out the shiplap, I picked out the colors, I picked out the railing, everything. I see as an artist, every little detail that I need to fix. But I feel like a good job of not letting the customer see that. Because the customer doesn't know that there's one wire that's off and I need to tighten that wire. You know what I mean? It's the customer experience. And if the staff know our vision and the staff get it, when they come in and somebody's ordering chocolate, our employees can be like, hey, did you know that's made 30 minutes away? Yeah. They're the people.
Yeah.
They're the people to
shepherd your mission forward. So what happens on team night? What do you guys do?
We did Qdoba, and then we did, of all people, I made an agenda. I made an agenda. I made a PowerPoint for this. I know.
What was on your PowerPoint?
So we had like baby pictures of the business, like when, we set up at the handmade market. That was like our first,
Hold on, let me back up
retail
here.
Space.
So on Friday or Thursday or Friday, we're talking about like, hey, what are we going to have on our team night? Like, what's going to be our agenda? And I'm writing things down. And I'm like to Brody, I'm like, hey, should we like, do something big? He goes, no, we're just going to wing it.
No, she said, or do you want to wing it? And I said, I mean, either what? Because I'm in this mode of like, how can I help? If I needed, normally I would just wing it. So if you need me to write something down, I can do, so you tell me. And she's like, I don't know, we'll just wing it.
Okay. And so then Monday, we're having the team night at 6:00. And so he texts me at like 1:00 and he's like, hey, what do you want to write down? How many minutes do you want to do this? I'm making an agenda. I'm making a PowerPoint. I'm like, what? I'm just putting my kids down for a nap. Like, I can't be a part of this. And he's like, no, I got it. We're good. And so, I mean, the guy, I talked about him writing just things down a couple weeks ago. And now this guy is over here making a PowerPoint. He's making an agenda. I'm like, who is this? Do I have the right number?
That's
and so
amazing.
he comes and he's like super prepared. He has a 4-page packet for this agenda. He prints out enough for everybody. He goes through all of our baby photos and he runs the damn thing.
So was it a successful team night?
Yeah.
So we had Qdoba and we kind of told the story, and then I wanted everybody to be able to give their update for whatever department they're running. So Rachel, everybody's here, so everyone can hear the same message, right?
Yeah,
so
great.
Tell us what is the new protocols for events? What events do we have going on? What do you need from everybody? And if people have questions, how do they get a hold of you? And then have Nikki do that, have her do that, and then we kind of got lost in the weeds on some coffee stuff. But then we were able to just kind of hang out and have some drinks, and we made s'mores. We have little individual fire pits that we're going to start doing s'mores boards.
Fun.
And the girls were gracious enough to just let me bring it out and do it, because it was one more thing we got to add. But it was after that we had people come up and say, okay, like, I get that, like, I feel safe. And so I need someone to tell me that I'm doing a good job. Another person said, I think I could be better utilized in this area. And we had someone brand new. Like we literally interviewed her at 5:30 and team night was at 6. And we said, you want to stick around? She goes, yeah. And so she got like the full, and that's, I mean, everything's been so fast. Like it was literally, you're hired. Here's the coffee. Let's go.
Yep.
And so the like mission part wasn't getting lost. It just wasn't getting talked about.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, the slowing down, right? Because in a startup, and I mean, you guys you're not dabbling in an easy industry. You're not dabbling at all. I mean, you're in it. But I mean, food service is it's a real specific animal. And so is coffee. And so is a bar. Like it's a lot and it moves fast. In a call off or like in a situation where suddenly like the main person can't be there, that creates an enormous emergency, if you will, and it's present and it's fast and you can't. So the fact that you were like already within the first month, you knew to slow down and bring the team together. There's so much people can learn from you guys. It's just awesome.
And so I keep going back to that thing of what is somebody listening? What are they going to get out of this? What are they going to gather? What do they want to know? And so I think the one thing that I've learned in business with running the studio for 5 years now, and this is I had to find the people that could help me in the areas that I was not good at or that I did not enjoy. Like I didn't know a thing about coffee when we opened this, and we were open a coffee shop. I didn't know anything about beer. I like wine. I don't like carbonation. So I don't like beer, but Brody's good at that.
Yep.
So it's finding the people that can help move the mission forward, finding the people that do that. For example, right? I'm running the line, but I'm getting text saying, hey, just wondering if you could pay that invoice. I need to hire somebody to help me do the back accounting things so that I can help make sure the wheels are turning.
Right.
So it's not being afraid to find the people that enjoy doing those things and having them help you, asking for help.
Right. And then the other side of that is to recognize that if they're filling these needs that don't come naturally to you, that also inevitably means there's probably going to be just personality differences. I mean, seriously, like then you look at the world differently, right? You each have gifts and skills, but personality isn't what bridges it. It's taking the time to get to know yourself first, each other second, and then digging deep and working through that stuff through the way that you talk and communicate and asking for what you need and, asking for help and all that stuff. But that what we tend to do is we surround ourselves with people that move and act and think the way that we do. That's good and easy, but then the gaps that you have are still there. So it's a really tricky balance.
But it's totally getting out of your comfort zone.
100%. Yeah.
To be able to say, you're right, I don't need to handle the taxes because this gal does it really well. And I know she has my back.
And that's what I was going to say is you took a little convincing to.
I did.
Call someone in. And it's like, she's like, what do you think if we have them do our bookkeeping? I said, start them yesterday. Like, take it.
Yeah. He's like, why are we having this conversation again? I'm like, I don't know. Because I have been burned in the past with accounting things. And so like all of those past feelings come up. But in the hindsight, this person that we specifically found is amazing. And I'm unknowingly putting all of my past baggage on her, which is not fair because she has shown me no wrong.
And so since we didn't ask the questions until last Friday, she could have been doing this the whole time for the same price.
Same price.
We don't even have to add a service. She's like, oh yeah, it's all covered under all your other bookkeeping stuff you're already doing.
Yeah, you just needed to ask me to do it and I would have already been doing it.
So then on my drive to Sioux Falls, I emailed her all the invoices that have been sent in my inbox. Like, yep, we'll get there.
Right. But it's being able to slow down and say, you're right, I do need help. Right. And it's being able to like go to my husband, like, I need help doing laundry.
Yeah.
I need help.
This spills over into all of life.
All of life.
I have said to myself, because I really suck at asking for help.
I do.
Wow, big shocker, huh? God. And it's because I also some of it is how I was raised. I was raised that if I can do it, then you don't pay someone else to do it.
Right.
Like, where's your sense of dignity and pride? It's a really hard thing to get over. But I think if there's something in your life that pisses you off on a consistent basis, then fix it. Like, figure out how to fix it. And by fix it, it's like, find somebody else that can do it, offload it, delegate it, change the way you do it. Like, sometimes but you need to slow down enough to like have that thought process too. But that's all of life. If you're consistently bumping up against something and it has to be done, but it brings you, all you do is get frustrated by it. Then,
or you keep putting it off. You keep putting it off.
There's probably something that could be done. So figure it out. Like,
there's all kinds of nerds in the world who want to help the rest of us.
I know. God bless them.
And there's things that I love detail work. Like, I love the detail work of putting a business together. Like, I love picking out paint color. I love all of that stuff. I don't love organizing my accounting books.
Right.
There's different kinds of detail.
That's right. And that's why there are people.
That's why there are people.
Help spur on the economy and give things to people that have that's their business.
We've been in a recession, goddamn.
Yeah. Give people work. Okay. So this is all so good. So there's one other kind of thing I want to talk about, and it's just how it's been for you guys in the last month, thinking about the role you're playing for Aberdeen, for the community and for your patrons. Like, what kind of feedback have you been getting? What are people saying? What feels good? What maybe doesn't?
So there's all kinds of little things that we've tweaked. The ciabatta was too small and the sourdough was too big. And that's not really this, but I think, so we've tweaked some of that stuff. I think what we've heard is that it doesn't feel like Aberdeen.
That's a fantastic comment.
And they always say, I mean that in a good way. And I said, nope, that's fine. So then we've started to say, because my brother was like, it's not quite like Starbucks, but it's not quite like this place. And I said, you're right. It's what's next. Like, we've all been through hell. And so, and our own personal hells. And so this can be a place that's what's next. It's this third space, theory. And I love it when you hear constantly the whole day, hey, I haven't seen you in so long. And it's working. It's a place to connect.
Right.
People are hanging out on the plaza. I mean, maybe not this week. It's going to be 100 degrees, but fine. Bring them upstairs. We'll serve beer up there too.
Yep.
So that's been great. We've also heard that it's so people like that that the owners are there and present. They know who owns the place and they know that we are there running food and we're there doing all the things. In other places in town, that's not necessarily true.
Right.
So those have been great. It just on a personal note, because I was alone for so long and because what I worked so hard for didn't work out, it took me a long time to get to a place where I could put my shoulders back a little bit and say, yeah, you're right. I did this. I deferred to Carly a lot.
You did. Yeah.
And especially in those first couple of weeks, people would say, this is gorgeous. You guys did such a great job. And I would say things like, thanks. I didn't pick out any of it because I just don't work that way. Or I know Carly did such a great job. I would even say, yep, it's coming along. Even though it's fully open, it's not coming along anymore. It's here. But that was where that was my trauma, I guess, if you want to call it that.
It was your armor.
Yeah.
You were still armored up from your experience.
And so it was a good friend who sat me down and said, no, you're the fucking owner of this place. You built it. We're here now playing games in your bar, drinking your beer, and you own this. Own it now.
Right.
And that has been a very interesting piece for me to it's been a very introspective month. Or at least
all the
2
things.
weeks.
I bet.
So I think that is the community support has been very humbling. There's a big bank down the street that keeps coming to us and doing events. And
great.
It's amazing. On Friday, they're bringing 250 people down to our plaza and they want us to make breakfast. And I said, yep, just let me know how much it is. And it's incredible. So
we're finding that people are enjoying something new and refreshing, something that doesn't feel like Aberdeen, something that makes you feel like kind of in a downtown Minneapolis,
right?
I'm kind of in a downtown big city, but I walk out my front door and I'm in the biggest small town in South Dakota.
Right. Oh, I don't know how to ask this question. It's like, I can speak from my experience and then see if this lands with you guys. But I think sometimes the balance of being aspirational and yet relatable. And that's like for me as a physical person, but I think a space can have the same challenge, right? Because you're trying to create a vibe, and it's like, so is it good to say it feels like downtown Minneapolis? I would argue that it does, but has there been any tension in your hearts or in your minds, or you know what I mean? Like, I'm not asking this question well at all, but do you understand what I'm driving at?
Because the whole mission is local and is still Aberdeen. Right?
Yes.
So whereas Carly could see the whole place and how it was going to come together, I could always feel what I wanted it to feel like.
Yeah. Right.
And I think even down to someone comes up and they look at this beautiful chalkboard that is an infographic of what coffee is. Here's all the types of coffee you can have, and they're still lost. But we have the great staff to say, well, what do you like? And we can kind of take their hand and guide them through this coffee journey,
Get the lavender honey.
Lavender honey.
Yeah. So good, guys.
Same with bartending. These kids don't drink the craft beer that we're serving or haven't before, but they took the training to heart. I said, next time you go out, order something you wouldn't normally get, and then just be able to describe it. I don't give a shit if you like it or not.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
As long as you know what it's supposed to taste like. People want to be sold something.
Yeah.
But still have it be approachable and chill but just feel like something's different. So I feel like we're doing things differently than has been done here, but it still feels like home.
It still feels intimate, right?
Yes.
There's an
intimacy. Feels like home. And that's when you walk in our front door, it says welcome home. Because the whole point is when you're walking in our house, you're going to feel very comfortable. And you're going to feel like, I wish this was my house. I wish I had shiplap up on my walls.
Right.
But I don't.
You know how often I hear that? Oh my God, I love shiplap. Oh, I know, Becky. Wouldn't that be great? But
it's so funny because we talked about shiplap.
We did.
Bertie's like, oh, the shiplap. And I was like, I said, I love shiplap.
Right. But it makes you feel cozy.
Right.
And it puts down your walls almost. And it makes you feel like, hey, do you know my neighbor that makes chocolate? It's right here. Do you know Nikki? She's just down the street. She designed that shirt. Hey, do you know her daughter Willow, who designed the Willow line, which is actually the kids' t-shirt line?
Yeah.
I go to school with her. Hey,
yeah.
Do you know Carly? She has another business down the street and she made this t-shirt.
Yeah.
Right? Do you know our city councilwoman? She designed the Aberdeen retro hoodie and she also designed our Aberdeen logo.
Yeah.
This is what makes us different, is that we are creating that space where everything is regionally based. I'm going to know, and I'll be able to tell you where every single piece of retail, everything is sourced from.
Yeah. That is a very special thing that you have chosen to do. And it takes a lot of effort.
It takes so much time to find those gems
right.
that are hiding in their houses. It takes so much time to be able to say our cookies and our muffins are made from a local baker who makes them in her commercial kitchen, freezes them, and then we bake them in-house. We also have our biscotti that is made here in our commercial kitchen from a gal who has worked at Colorful Creations for 4 years, has a daycare, watches my kids during the day, but she just loves to bake. And her biscotti is amazing.
I'm gonna have to come down there and get. I love
right,
stuff.
but this is
So,
what it is.
And I will say, like in my little town, right? So I'm in Oaks, town 1800. I want to find those hidden gems and celebrate them. I won't be celebrating them in the same way because I don't have a retail space. But I think and that is part of what living big in your small rural place looks like. It's having an outlet for the things that light your soul on fire, but maybe don't pay your bills, and they maybe never will, and they maybe don't have to.
Right.
I think sometimes we push people too hard to like make that your thing. Well, side gigs can stay side gigs forever. And that's super cool if that's what they want to do. But you're giving them, you're celebrating and you're elevating.
Absolutely.
Artisans, that work needs to be elevated.
It's giving credit where credit is due.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I
so
love it.
Part of why this space is so important is because just like you, I married a farmer. I can't move the farm. And I knew right away that I am not the only one. Like there are so many people in my area that commute back and forth, right, to a different city. And so if I have this experience of where I want to live, why can't I create that space? Because I have all of the abilities to do that. I have the right partner. I have the right core team. I can't move the farm. I know I'm here for life. So I'm going to make it happen because I want my kids to experience that. I want my kids to experience a farmer's market that has bouncy houses. That has animals, that has all the things that we've talked about wanting as Aberdonians and as regional people, but you got to drive 3 hours to get that. Why is that?
Right. I love that so much. And that's when people have asked me, like, why growing small? Like for me too, right?
Exactly.
Like why this space?
Right.
And I was like, I am creating the thing that I want to make my community feel good to me because I'm not moving either.
No.
So I can continue to be like, oh, it's, and my small town is great.
Yes.
Right. You love living here for other reasons, but then it's that soul filling thing for you that you want it for you and not just for you. There's other people that want the same thing, but it's
at that point,
creating the community you want to live in.
At that point, it's okay to be selfish.
Well, you're going to be the one taking the risk.
You are, right? But it's also being selfish, but listening. And when I say listening, I mean truly listening and not listening to respond, but listening to absorb.
Right. To understand
and listening to what the community wants. Because for years, right, Brody and I have Brody had, the brewery and I have Colorful Creations. Our friendship started because he was watching water boil and he would come over to the studio and just want to be with another person, right?
Just so ronery over there.
Right. And so he would sit there with Joni and I, and we would just brainstorm and we would just talk and we would be like, God, that'd be so cool if, right. And so it's about creating that space and listening to what other people want. And if it's coming to you, it's coming to you for a reason.
Right. I know you got to listen, do something with it. And boy, have you guys listened.
Listen to absorb.
Yeah. And what you've created is, I have to tell you, so my mom and I came on, still part of your soft opening. So it was the day before you actually opened to the public. And, it's fun because when my mom, when I first was like, I'm going to do this thing. Like when I first told her I wanted to buy the Ben Franklin building, which was her parents, right? She just looked at me and she was like, why? Like, why would you want to do that? But now my mom's one of my biggest champions and she's in it with me and stuff. So when I get to bring her to a space like we did to the market and I get to let her meet you guys, it was so sweet. Because Carly was like, Mom, can I hug you? When we were leaving and we walked out, and my mom and I are very, very different. Like I fly pretty high and pretty hot, pretty fast. She's very not, but she just said, I can totally get why these people feel so good to you. Cause I've talked about you guys a lot. And she said, and wow, what an amazing gift, to the community and then to us, because we're only an hour away. Right. So we're part of your region, and there's something just so amazing and so special about how intentional you guys have been. And you are intentionally building your team. You're intentionally, sourcing what you're putting in your store. There's just a lot of mindfulness and thoughtfulness. And I think that's what's missing in business. That's why big box retail is closing, because there's not that same level of care and concern and love. It's love. This comes from a place of love. So as we wrap up, is there anything else you want our listeners to know? But I want to thank you guys for sharing this last month, because we can watch and see what's happening on social media, but it's not the same as what the behind the scenes looks like.
I've really enjoyed this. I thought it's been helpful, and it's good to take a step back, right? And notice what you've done. I think I am a little bit better at standing there and watching it all work and kind of being proud of it. I think I try not to give myself too much credit. I think what we've done with the staff I'm proud of that.
You should be.
I agree.
I think I can see the impact, and I remember when we hired our first people, we're like, holy shit, we're responsible for putting food on their table now.
It's a big responsibility.
And that's not a place I've ever been in. I've said for a long time, I've kind of played at business for 4 years, but this is really, now I'm doing it. And it's a very different animal. But I'm proud of where we're at, and I'm proud of what we've built, and I'm proud of what you and I have done, and just us. I think the teamwork is the whole other part of this that is harder than people think. So
it's really hard. It's
finding the right partner, but then being able to roll with it as well, and be honest with each other, I think is new for me and really refreshing. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And I appreciate you just in all the same facets. And I will continue to tell everybody that I have the dream partner, because without him, I couldn't do any of this. And he succeeds in all the areas that I know I'm lacking. Right. And I just want to thank the community. I want to thank them for getting it. For so long, we have been dreaming about this. And for so long as Aberdonians, we have dreamt about this, having this beautiful space to gather under the beautiful Edison lights and having live music outside and be able to sit with more than just two people and experience that. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for coming in and actually taking the step of action to support us, not just seeing online. But this space is for the community. The space isn't for us. We created this because we were listening to what everybody wanted. And we want people to experience it. And so as regional people, we want you to come to Aberdeen, and we want you to feel welcome here because you are. And we want you to feel like you are at home, because this is your home too. This is not just Brody and Carly's space. We will never call it that. This is the community, the regional home.
Right.
So welcome home.
Well done, guys. You're so awesome.
Thank you.